Welcome to the Creative College Journey podcast, the place to help raise awareness on the many pathways to a creative life and education and how college might be a part of it. Because it's not where you go to school, but how you go to school that counts. Hosted by professional creative and college expert Scott Barnhart, who is chatting with a variety of guests who have some amazing lived experiences from different universities, majors, and creative industry interests. And we hope by hearing their stories, it might help give you some inspiration to find your own creative college journey.
I am thrilled to welcome and have a conversation with my next guest today, the incomparable Ms. Bella Arnold. I've known Bella as a former student of mine from the Orange County School of the Arts Musical Theatre Conservatory when I joined as the director of the program her junior year. And as I told her when I asked her to be a guest on the show, her journey through higher education has been one that has delighted and inspired me to no end, especially knowing how it all started and the mindset where she was and where she is now. Bella Arnold is a journalist who is currently earning her master's degree at UC Berkeley's Graduate School of Journalism. Currently, she is a data reporter for the California Reporting Project at the Investigative Reporting Program, where she investigates police use of force and misconduct in California. Absolutely, Bella. Absolutely. Previously, she earned her BA from Cal State University Long Beach, where she was editor-in-chief of Dig Mag, an insider's guide to Long Beach for the Cal State Long Beach community. And I'm plugging this. Bella did not write this, but she is also a wickedly talented musical theater performer and vocalist. And she has one of my favorite vocal performances I've ever directed. Her rendition of So What Happens Now in Evita was Joni Mitchell stylistic perfection. She's shaking her head right now, going like, "What? Stop it." Bella loves writing stories about books and people experiencing joy. And in her free time, Bella likes to read. Like, literally, she's the most voracious reader I think I know. And she watches rom-coms and pines for the 22 West Freeway. Welcome to the Creative College Journey, Bella Arnold.
That was so nice.
We got to start right. We got to start right.
I'm so excited.
Bella, I just want to start off with like getting a little quick update. Where are you at right now? How are you doing? Like literally, how are you right now? And maybe a little insight of how you currently identify as a creative and how maybe that relates to your life at Berkeley.
Yeah, well, I mean, like you mentioned, I am at Berkeley right now. I'm in my first year of a 2-year master's program in journalism. Recently, I come from the magazine world, but I've been doing a lot of investigative work, like you mentioned, in a California reporting project, which is like crazy. Like, I kind of applied for the bit because I was like, oh, I don't know anything about investigative work. Like, I know how to, do public records requests and absolutely love it. So weird that I do, but I love it. Which is like not a very creative process, but it's like very rigid in the sense that, like, you're literally looking at data and also, like, we're reading police reports and stuff. Like, it's not fun work to do, but it's important work to do, and I don't know, I really fell in love with it, which is weird because like, I am a literary beat reporter and culture reporter, so I don't know how we got here, but I guess it's not, like, the most creative thing, but it's a very, like, invigorating thing. So, yeah, it's kind of what I'm doing mostly in addition to my studies.
That's incredible. And I feel like there's always creativity in any form of research because you're searching for the answer, or you're like, I would presume, like reading between the lines and trying to find out
Oh,
like
yeah.
what the story is. I just I love that that's where you're at right now in Berkeley, no less.
I did too. It was, like, so random, but I just applied and I was like, "I'm not gonna get it," and then I did, thank God. And then it's been, like, super cool. My bosses are amazing. It's a team of women. Love
Amazing.
that.
Oh,
So yeah, it's
amazing.
great.
All right, so let's get into it. This is all about college applications, how people got to where they are. So like I said, I worked with you back in the day, working on some of your college applications, and you did a really interesting thing. Because right down the middle of your list, you applied to half really competitive BFA musical theater programs, mostly out of state, and then the other half really competitive academic pre-law programs, all in state in California. So, can you give us a little insight of like that decision process and maybe what brought you to Cal State Long Beach?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, like, growing up, I don't know if this is still a thing, but like we did the STAR testing and the benchmark testing growing up. And I always scored really high on those. So like being academic like became my personality trait because like I was, I liked reading always growing up. And then I was like good at those things. I've always liked academia and like academics, but I kind of never like really had like one passion. Like I grew up doing ballet. I liked it. I wasn't great at it. I knew I wasn't gonna pursue that. And musical theater, I like really enjoyed the satisfaction that like I knew I was pretty good at it. So I was like, oh yeah, I could see that being something I want to do, but it was never like I never was fully in it because I was like the thought of having to like go on auditions all the time and like not have job security was like gave me like stress pimples. But yeah, so I kind of my mom's an immigrant and I always wanted to find a way to like give back to the community that like raised me quite literally. So I was like, okay, I can see myself being an immigration attorney. Again, not that I like really had a passion for it, but I was like, I'll make a lot of money. And also like I think that there is value in that,
Sure.
obviously, especially the justice system is what it is. And then the other half I was like, well, I could do the musical theater thing. And I think that there was a lot of emphasis at OSHA from admin to like go to college for the things that you were studying at OSHA. So I was just like, I don't know that I want to put all my eggs in either basket. So I was like, I'll just, apply to like the best of the best programs. Like I applied for Michigan, Carnegie, other places. UCLA was like the big one I wanted to go to. I think Elon in Emerson. I think that was it. And it was 5, and it was like 5 of the most competitive one. But I don't know. I kind of was just like trying to be pragmatic about it, but I was very like emotionally detached from it, which I think was like the root of, you know, where my issue started. That I was like, I'm okay at musical theater and I'm okay in the academic sense. And like, I'm sure I'll find my way in one of these things and like I'll let the decisions decide for me. And kind of was very like clinical in my approach to that and thought that that would just like shake out the way I wanted it to. And it didn't. Spoiler alert. But yeah, I don't know. I know a lot of people had like the big urge to like get away and like be on their own, but like I never really had that. I lived at home for most of my college career. I'm very close with my family and like I love California. I'm a big SoCal girl. Being in Berkeley is like too far for me. But yeah, so I never like for the schools where I was like being more pragmatic, I was like, I want to be in California. And then Cal State Long Beach was like super random. I was like, my dad went there, other family members went there. Long Beach is cool. Like it was like a very common thing for people who lived like where we lived to go to Cal State Long Beach. And it's like a great school, but I was just kind of like, it was like a throwaway application and there was no essay. So yeah, that was kind of my like thought process for the college journey. And then, we'll get into how it ended up.
Well,
But
I mean, maybe let's dig into it because I am curious. Like, I brought you here specifically because you had such an interesting response in that spring. I remember your response in the spring, and there was a lot of really heightened emotions in and around the decision making and where you were going to go and who had said yes and who had said no. So, like, take us back to 17-year-old Bella. You had done all the applications and the letters started coming back. What was going through your mind and what sort of made you make decisions that you made?
I mean, I was devastated when things started coming back. Like I tasted blood for like 3 months. It was it was not a good time for 17-year-old
Yeah.
Bella. And I think like a part of what was so devastating to me is that it was like, well, for context, I didn't get into any of the musical theater schools I applied to. I applied to those 5 and like I knew it was like, you know, a fat chance, I guess, just like in terms of statistics. But I was like, I went to OSHA, like I prepped a lot for this. I did the boot camp. I like spent a lot of time on my pre-screens. I passed on my pre-screens, so that was like, not for lack of effort. But I was expecting to get like at least waitlisted
Yeah.
into one school. And I didn't. I just got like straight up rejected from all 5. And I kind of like I said, I took a really clinical approach to like making my decisions. I started making spreadsheets my freshman year, and I think started going to the counselor. Like I don't remember who my counselor was, but
Yeah.
like to talk about college freshman year, I was 14 years old, and I was like, so in 3 years, I'm gonna have a big decision to make. You know, all of this, like it was like hours of effort that I had put into like being like, oh, well, this is like a reach school, but like, is it really a reach school? Because I was, conceited. And I didn't get into any of them. And like the one that stung the most was UCLA because people were willing to kill at those auditions. People were willing to like do what it took
Yeah.
to get into those schools. I never had, like, not even an ounce of it. Like, I was like, I prepped for this a lot. I put in the work, but I don't like care. about this, which I think was, a big issue. But I don't know. I think like when it started coming back, I was like, oh my God, I did not think I would be emotional over this. But I think part of it was because I didn't think it would turn out the way that it did. I thought I was going to get into UCLA. I thought I was going to live with my besties. We were going to dorm together and then like get an apartment. I was going to come home on the weekends and have lunch with my brothers. And that didn't happen. It was like a complete loss for me. And I've never told you this, but we had a Vita rehearsal the day after the UCLA auditions or decisions came out. And I, like, told Kira to tell you that I had, like, a stomach ache or something, and I skipped rehearsal because I was, like, so emotionally devastated. I was like, "I cannot do this right now," and I got acrylics that day. That was, like, my fix, and for the first time, they were so ugly.
That was the treat. That was
Yeah,
acrylics.
I was like, "Maybe that'll help," and, like, it sure didn't because it was, like, a complete loss of who I was. I was like, "Oh my God, I don't know what to do now." And I didn't get into a lot of the, law programs I applied to either because I didn't really, like, look into those programs. I was like, "These schools are good, they're close. I'm sure the law program's gonna be fine too." And at the end, I got into Cal State Long Beach for pre-law. I think Whittier College, I think I was also pre-law there. University of San Francisco, also pre-law, and I got a pretty big scholarship from them, but it's San Francisco and it's a private school, so it was, like,
Yep.
bonkers expensive. And then I got waitlisted Loyola Marymount, also pre-law, and I was like, "I don't wanna go to any of these schools, I'm not excited about any of these programs." Like, everybody's getting into these, like, amazing schools. Everybody's getting into, like, Ivy Leagues and, like, UCs, and, like, I felt so bad that, like, my best prospect was a Cal State. I was like, "Oh my God, my life is over. This 4.0 GPA for what?" Um, yeah, so it was not a good time for me, and I kind of just, like, made the decision because I was like, "I really can't afford University of San Francisco," and, like, even if I take loans, like, I don't wanna do that. I don't wanna have to, like I'm very proud. I graduated without any loans from Cal State Long
Did you hear
Beach.
that, folks? Folks, did we hear that? She graduated from undergrad without any debt or loans.
I had a little money left over, which was, like, kind of a
Oh,
serve.
that's a
Um,
win. I mean, in these
yeah,
fields, in journalism and
yeah.
creative arts and acting, whatever, like to be in the black is to have flexibility, to have power, to have freedom, really. Oh, that's huge, Bella.
Yeah. So I was like, at the time, I was like, journalism was not anywhere on my radar, like not even a little bit. And I liked reading growing up. I really liked writing growing up too, but that was always something where I was like, I can't see myself like pursuing that. I like it's fun. So why would that be something that I do as a career? Yeah, no, so I had no reason to believe I would be even a little bit good at journalism, but I just decided to go to Long Beach because it was like a pragmatic decision. I was like, as much as I, like, was kind of mourning it when I made that decision, which is, like, so privileged and bratty to say looking back, but I really was. I was like, "I do not wanna go to this school." Like, my dad went here, like, everybody goes here. There's gonna be people from middle school that I went to middle school with who are also going here, like, that sucks. Which, again, it's a fantastic school. It's, like, one of the best Cal States, and, like, the Cal State system is, like, one of the best public systems in the country.
And it's
Like
that. It's like it's an incredible institution that has so much
Mhm.
going for it, that has so and then you add the price point to all that it has going for it. It's
Mhm.
like wild, but I love going back because 'cause you're actually the example, and I hate to bring you on to be the example of, like, you had the worst case scenario
I did. It was,
of
like, a
of
nightmare.
those, and I talk a lot with clients of like, "Okay, if your worst case scenario is you get 0 acceptances from your musical theater programs or what
Mhm.
insert creative major here. What do you do?" And again, you bring up that topic, and for a lot of 16, 17, 18-year olds, it's like literally the earth separates and a hole like takes you down into the center of the earth. It feels really hot to students. But if they can wrap their mind around that their worst case scenario actually isn't bad. In fact, in many ways, it's pretty amazing. They can get a little bit of that context moving into this decision making, usually there can be a little less torment. But it's hard when you're going through it in real time. And you were going through it
Oh.
in real frickin' time.
Yeah. It definitely, like, I look back and I'm like, I don't know, I think I need to, like, give myself a little grace because 'cause I'm like, that was so bratty to be upset about getting into Cal State Long Beach and, like, committing to Cal State Long Beach, especially when it ended up being this, like, wonderful thing. Like, it's a predominantly Latino school, that was huge for me. I don't think I had gone to a school with like really other marginalized people, period, since elementary school. Like I went to a predominantly white middle school in Huntington Beach. So imagine that. And then, OSHA, I don't know if OSHA is predominantly white, but it felt very
I don't know
predominantly
that. I
white.
mean,
Um,
for Mid Orange County, it is certainly one of the more diverse schools because it brings in so many people
yeah.
into. But I don't think it's a stretch to say it's predominantly white.
Yeah. It was all my friends were white. There was like, I think maybe like a handful of Latinos in my year. Cause when we did our capstone like projects that somebody had in the Heights and we all got tapped to do, I was like, I have no connection to this. Like, I don't care for In the Heights. It's like a good show, but I was like, I'm not gonna do this well. But what are the options? And yeah, so that was kind of like a thing that I wasn't foreseeing being important to me. But I think like as I go into journalism and just get older and like, the world we're living in, it like was really important that I went to that school, I think, and like that I was surrounded by other Latinos. There was a lot of non-traditional students, a lot of undocumented students. I think it was just like important to be in a space that was very different from the places I wanted to go,
Yeah,
to be frank. Like it was, I think some of the smartest people and some of the most hardworking people I met during my 3 years at Cal State Long Beach, like have changed the way that I look at journalism, changed the way I look at the world, like made me a lot more grateful, made me a lot more cognizant of the privilege I have. And it's just like, I think that was very important. But at the time, I was just like, it's a school that everybody from my middle school is going to go to, and that sucks. And it's not a musical theater school. And like they have programs that I could have done theater if I wanted to, but I was like, it's not, for me, it's not enough like prestige to warrant me doing that, And I think that that's also not maybe a good mindset to have, but I was like, that's where
yeah.
I'm at and it sucks. And I was very upset about it for a very
That's
long
so
time.
interesting that ultimately it wasn't even necessarily exactly about the art form, but about the prestige connected to the art form or prestige
Yeah.
connected to an
Oh,
institution.
yeah.
And it's like I so empathize with you, Bella, because that's literally, in many ways, sort of what I experienced. I applied to 5 schools and I did not get into my top two. I didn't get into NYU or Carnegie Mellon. And I was crestfallen,
Oh,
did a
wow.
whole dramatic interpretive dance in my acting class about it. Like, yeah, I got
Got
acrylic.
acrylics.
If
Yeah.
only, if only I had gotten acrylics, maybe that would have helped. But I will say, I went to this. I went to my safety school, quote unquote. I went to Wagner, and I wasted the better part of a year in sort of the harumph. This isn't NYU.
Yeah.
Cut to, when I really look back at my life in that moment, my family and I could not have afforded NYU. Wagner had offered me this giant scholarship that made it totally affordable for us. I performed so much at Wagner. I still got to make that transition to New York. Like, there were so many reasons why Wagner was the far more optimum space for me, but it took a solid year before I could really understand that. And to me, I always go like, man, what a waste. Like, I wish I could have let go of some of that ego and just gone to school and
Oh,
enjoyed it.
yeah.
And, we get there when we get there. And it sounds like you did as well. But I so empathize with that mindset piece of the 17, 18-year-old who's like, I know what I want, but there's so much more that's out there for you that could also work for you.
No, yeah. I think like how much like mental real estate I like that had over me of being like, oh, if I don't get into one of these like, top school, if I'm not able to like post my little like, oh, look where I'm committed post and like have people be like, oh my God, wow, then my life is over. But like, I don't know. I'm like infinitely more impressed with the choices that I made not going to like, because I could have gone to University of San Francisco and that has a certain amount of like whatever attached to it, but I couldn't afford that. And I like, did I want to do that? Did I want to be in like, X amount of miles away from my family for like a program I had not cared about even like a little bit? And everybody was always like, oh, you'll grow where you're planted. They said that the
Guilty.
entire time. And that like fall when we were applying.
Guilty.
No, and you did. And every time I remember I would tell people, I'm like, if they say it one more time, like I'm burning something down. This is crazy. Like I will only grow if I'm at UCLA, like or if I'm at Carnegie Mellon. But like it really is true, which is so annoying. But like I try to live in the like everything happens for a reason mindset because I do think that like it obviously led to good things, but even like I don't know, I just think that it's important for there to even be not have that like disaster mindset of like, oh, going to a Cal State or going to community college or not going to college is the worst thing that can happen. Cause like truly it's not. It's so unserious making that choice to not go to like an Ivy League. And I just think that that's not like dialogue
Uh,
that's happening.
this is why we are having this dialogue right now. For that
Yeah.
exact reason, is that there's so many options. Going direct to industry,
Right.
getting a job, especially for this upcoming generation who had this real shift in their lives with the 2 years of the pandemic.
Oh yeah.
There's something to be said of taking a gap year and getting a job, like, and just building
Mhm,
out those social skills. Truly, for no other reason, building out the
mhm.
adulting skills before going to college or not going to college. Like that time of like just working and earning an income and finding your way through could be super valuable for the right student. And again, it's going back to like, well, what do you need as a student, not what's impressive? When were you pulled by journalism, and how quickly did you figure out, like, did you have to change majors? Did you have to like officially do anything in that regard? Like, what happened for you getting into journalism?
So, like I said, I decided to go to Long Beach that whole summer. I was like mad that I was doing that. But we had to do a like register. I think they called it SOAR, I want to say, which was spooky because there was like an OSHA thing called SOAR. So I was like, oh my God. But we had to do it over the summer and it was like basically a day to like get to know the campus, like meet some other freshmen, and then you would pick your classes. And that was like really the chunk of the day. And at the beginning of the day, they're like, you're the major you got in with is on your paper, but if you want to change it, like you need to let somebody know. And I like, you know me, I am so type A. Like, there is no world in which I just make these rash decisions without having like 4 to 6 weeks to plan for it. But I was like, they handed me like my list of classes for pre-law. I was like, oh my God, this sounds horrible. Because I think specifically like Long Beach's program is like geared towards criminal law. And I was like, I definitely don't want to do that. But because I wanted, immigration
Yeah.
was more what I was focused on. And I was like, I'm gonna change my major. Like, I don't want this. The people around me, like, it wasn't the vibe that I felt like I needed. So I like went up to the orientation leader. I was like, I'm going to change my major. And they're like, to what? And I was like, so that is unclear at this moment. And I just need you to like, walk me to somewhere where I can change it. And they're like, okay, like that's fine. You don't need to know your major, but you need to know like which college you're gonna be in. And I was like, okay, like liberal arts seems like, where I should live. And then they were like, "Okay." And I knew I had to take a psychology class just because of the, like,
Yeah.
requirements for, like, graduation. So I was like, "I'll just be psychology," like, for now. Again, had no interest. Like, I took psychology class. It was great. I had no interest in it. And I knew that that's not what I was not existing in a world in which I was gonna be, like, a therapist or something. So I, like, changed my major, and then I was like, "Okay, I'm psychology right now." It was, like, July at this point. I'll give myself until, like, September 1st to, like, pick the major I'm going to graduate with. And I had literally, like, printed out the list of majors for the College of Liberal Arts, and I started, like, hacking through it. I was like, "Okay, English, I know I wanna do as a minor, but that's not really something I wanna major in," just because the classes didn't really speak to me. Like, it was just, like, a lot of, like, literary, like, analysis classes where I was like, "I wanna
Yeah.
write stuff." And then I hacked through it all, and I was like, journalism and communications was what I was left with, and I was like, communications was good because like, it's broad, I can, like, still figure it out while I'm, like, doing classes and not just, like, wasting my time and money. And then I was like, but journalism, like I said, I had no reason to believe that I would be even a little bit good at it. I'd never interviewed anybody. I had never, like, written a story. I had never, like I did not know what the inverted pyramid was. There was nothing I knew. But I was like, "It kinda sounds interesting." And, like, a lot of it was that I had beef with the way that journalism was being done at that point, and, like, I still do. I talk about it a lot in my classes, and people are, like, always like, "You should not say that." I'm like, "I don't care." I think that there's a lot of mishandling of the way we cover marginalized communities in the sense that like the only time that you see stories about marginalized people is when they're in harm or doing harm. And I think that that perpetuates a lot of issues systemically that we see. And I was like, I think that, the root of the problem is just like the way that we've been trained to like talk about marginalized people. But also, like, there's not people from these communities doing this reporting. And I was like, okay, so I can do that because I understand what it's like coming from an immigrant household. And also, I'm a white passing Latino. If anybody is like, needs to assert their privilege in this situation, like, I need to do it. Because, like, for some people, it could be life or death for them to do these types of stories where, like, for me, I don't suffer from the same biases that are rooted in every system. So I was like, I'll do it. I'll take the intro class. I think like our section or like department was journalism and public relations. And I actually think first I committed to public relations because it was like all the same classes except for like a few your senior year. I was like, I can switch if like I I could do PR if I don't like journalism because it's pretty close to communication. And I took the intro journalism class and it was so bad. Every story that came back was like horrible. Like I was so embarrassed. But I really liked it. It was like the first time that I was like really, really bad at something, but I wasn't like discouraged by that. I was like, but I really like the process of editing. It made sense to me the way that we wrote in the inverted pyramid, like leads made sense to me. And this was spring 2020. So like when I started taking my journalism classes, like halfway through was when the pandemic started. So I think that really also informs like my trajectory because I had so much time to do
Yeah.
literally nothing. And I was like, I can take time to get better at this because like I like it. So I'm gonna, sit down with this story that is horrible for like 6 hours and like figure out what I can do to make it better. And I would like send it back to my professor, be like, hey, you do not need to like change my grade, but like I want feedback on this. If you can tell me if I'm at least getting better a little bit. And I did. I got like a lot better. And like our training was mostly in news, which is not where I live typically, but I was like, I know how to do this and like I understand what I like and what I don't like. And that kind of just sparked the journey within journalism that I went on. But it was like truly so random, but would not have happened had I not gone to Cal State Long Beach because a lot of schools don't have journalism programs. Like they have newspapers, but you're usually like
Yeah.
in English or communications or like political science.
Where you're
Yeah.
actually studying the craft of journalism. You're
Oh,
literally
yeah.
describing the creative process. So like the
It's,
only way to actually get better in any creative act is by doing and being okay being bad at it. You have to be
Mhm,
okay having a really awful first pass, really, maybe really
mhm,
awful, like 30 passes. It might take 30 passes before you even
mhm,
get anything legible or readable. But that is the process, is like rinse, repeat, keep going. So it's really interesting, like
yeah.
this idea that you almost like fell into this medium and what sparked you is you're willing to like be bad at it and get better at it.
Mhm. I tell the first grade I got back was like a C, and I was like, "My life is over." That it was like, which is not even bad. C's get degrees. Come on, like, but I was so embarrassed. It was like we were like rewrite. It was it was Trump era, so we were like rewriting a lead, which is like the opening graph of a story. For those who
Thank you.
don't know.
Thank you, Journalism 101.
We were rewriting and it was so bad. Like I looked at it recently because I was just like curious. I was like, that is actually so embarrassing. But it was like, okay, I wasn't born not like knowing how to write a lead. I wasn't born with these skills, but it was fun. So I was like, you know what? I'll rewrite it 7 times if that's what it takes, and then that'll be
And you're
fine.
so smart. You're so intelligent. You are. I mean, like, there's no denying that part. But
Um,
actually, it's not about intelligence. It's about perseverance. It absolutely
mhm,
is about, are you
mhm.
willing to take the licks and still keep doing the process? So, ooh, this is exciting. I want to follow up on, I have one more question about sort of this time because it was really interesting, especially during the pandemic. You were still like stoking creative fires, both in theater and in writing. And can you sort of talk to us about why you were sort of developing plays? You were doing like play readings and a lot of Zoom podcasts and things like that. Like in the midst of being super busy at school, why were you spending extra time meeting up with people and reading plays? And correct me if I'm wrong, you were facilitating a lot of these sort of Zoom readings of both your plays and your peers' plays. Like, tell me a little bit about what was bringing you back into sort of like that theater world.
I mean, I kind of think that I never like really left it. Like the last show that I performed in, and I think it'll be the last show I ever perform in, to be honest. I think for my mental health. And everybody's always like, "Oh, you can do community theater." I'm good. Like I don't like I support those who want to dabble. That will not be me. At least not in this way. But the last show I did was Newsies, and it was like the summer before I started college. But then we had to take like an arts class the first semester, or some people took it at other points, but I took it my first semester, and it was a theater class. And it was so funny because I had just watched Gilmore Girls, and my professor was Liz from Gilmore Girls. Shout out Kathleen. She is the kindest person ever. But I was like geeking. I was like, oh my God, I just finished the show like a week ago, and now Liz is teaching me. Side note. But it was like an acting 101 class. Like I don't think we really ever did anything except kind of like explored that like creative space. And it was like more about like problem solving creatively than anything, because that's always what those classes are. because there was like engineers that were in that class. Like it was not a
Yeah.
class for performers. It was like simply just to like stretch that muscle, which I think is great. I think everybody needs to do that. But I don't know, I was taking that class and I had, like, heard about rumblings of, like, they had Cal State Long Beach has a thing called Theater Threshold, but they did student-produced work, and I was like, "Oh, we did drama comp in high school with Ryan Miller, and our show was, like, very well received, and we kind of had all made an agreement that if we wanted to, like, do these shows, like, at our separate colleges or whatever in the future, that, like, that was fine. Like, we were all like, we all put in some work to it, like, put your name to it, that is fine. Which, legally, is that sound? Probably not. But I was like, let me pitch the show to them, and if they like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. And then the show got accepted to do in the spring semester, and I was directing it as well, which was crazy, especially during that time. Our only show that we did was the day that campus shut down. So it was like March 13th, 2020 was the one show that we had. So it was like that timing was also really crazy. And I was taking an advanced playwriting class that I like weaseled my way into in the spring semester as well. And I wrote something about not getting into college. Because I was still like angsty about it. And it was like called We Regret to Inform You. It never saw the light of day beyond like a few podcast readings that we did. But that was like our project for the semester was to write a full play. And I really liked it. I had only done playwriting in drama comp before, but I was like, I really enjoy writing, like doing creative writing. That was my minor as well. So I was like, I can see myself doing playwriting. I just like, I have not done it enough to where I feel confident about it. And then when everything went online, it was like very pandemic-y, like it was like March to like May 2020. We were all kind of just like looking for ways to like have social outlets. But then I think I had something I wanted to read and it was something original for like a class assignment. And then other people were like, oh, I have this thing I also would want to be read. But that kind of wasn't like the venue for that group was doing already published work. So then I was like, okay, we can start a group that is like for non-published works. I started a Facebook group. I do not use Facebook anymore, but at this point, I was like, I'll start a Facebook group. Whoever wants to join, like, we'll create a day to do it. And we picked Thursdays at 7:30. We're still going semi-strong. And yeah, we just kind of like, it was a very random group that got together, which I kind of feel like was better because I was like, I really like, I don't know you enough to where your opinion is going to like wreck me if it's not great.
Totally.
And it was crazy at first because everybody had so much to read. Like we would have to make like agendas. And that's kind of where I stepped in as like the facilitator. I was like, okay, everybody needs to like send me your scripts if you want something read by this time or you will not get to read it this week. And it was crazy. We would be on these calls for like 5 hours. And it was like we were all so like thirsty to like be social and like be able to like do these things we were working on at a time when like we did not know when that was going to happen again. And it was really great. Like we did some like Zoom performances. We did like a lot of workshops of things. And it was just like really cool to see how creative these people were in a way that like I hadn't known them to be because we were all or most of us were like musical theater majors. So I was like, I know you can act, but like I did not know you could write like this. Yeah, it kind of like even as classes started going back in person, like we still had meetings. I wrote another play that was also done at Cal State Long Beach my last semester, so like a year ago, and that was something I completely workshopped with that group from start to finish. Like I had like an idea for, I really like Baja Blast, and I was like, I want to write a scene that like somehow works that in. And it was also based on a story I had written for Dig magazine, where I was the editor, and it was about like people getting married for FAFSA, which is a real thing because you can only be independent for FAFSA if you're married. And I was like, I feel like it's a good rom-com idea. So then I wrote like a scene and then everybody's like, oh, like this is great. Like you should write it. And then I did. And then it got performed, which was cool. I did not direct it this time, which I quite enjoyed. Like I just got to sit back and watch it happen.
Oh, I
It
was gonna say
was
that's the sweet spot for the playwright when you just get to like write it, it
so
comes out of
good.
your brain, throw it on the page, and then here you go.
I showed it to rehearsal like 4 times. I was like, it sounds great, guys. I don't know what to say. Good job. And it was great. It was, like, so nice to be able to do that, and I still to this day, I'm not, like, going to be a playwright, you know? I love journalism. I want a staff writer job, but, like, it was cool to be able to do these things where I'm like, I do like doing creative writing, like, that's what my minor was in, and I just like writing plays. I like reading plays, like, I'm gonna do them. Yeah, but, yeah, it was just kind of, like, I think all of us were, like, so hungry for some way to be creative, and it was, like, such a desperate time, so it was a very ragtag group that came together, but it was really great, and I'm like, to this day, I think that that is so cool.
I loved it from so many reasons. Like, the fact that just because you had gone into journalism and communications and creative writing minor, that especially at a school like Cal State Long Beach, there's access to student clubs or there's access to other majors or other communities. I think we think of colleges within a large university as being siloed, but it doesn't actually have to be the case. You might have to weasel your way into a class or two, but it's not impossible.
Mhm. Send the emails. I've gotten into so many classes by just being like, "Can I be in this class?" And they're like, "I guess." And then I show up
Because
and
I will
it's
say as a
great.
professor, what I all I ever wanted was students who wanted to be in the class, right? Like the idea of having
Exactly.
students who want to be in class, oh my God, it makes everything so much easier, better, more joyous for everyone. But I also just love that you guys had the moxie to do it yourselves. Like you weren't waiting for an opportunity to come your way. You made an opportunity in the midst of a really dark time and a really heavy time. And I remember, the handfuls of times I came into either one of Pua's readings or one of your readings, like I loved it. I was so impressed and inspired by watching the youngins, really take the reins and make something for themselves for no other reason than for the enjoyment of being creative together. It was really cool.
Yeah, and I think, like, from that group, like, 4 or 5 shows have, like, actually been performed places, which is, like, pretty cool because we were kinda just doing it to, like, workshop things, but, like, ideas were birthed there and then brought into, like, real places where I think people have gotten paid for it too. Like, I feel like people have
Get
gotten
that
fellowships
money.
from things we
Yes.
workshopped, was just, like, super cool. Yeah, I'd redo it. I don't know, it was fun, and it was also, like, very, I think, needed at that time. So, it's cool to see what it's, like, turned into. We're kind of all busy now. But, yeah, it was, like, a very
I
nice
love
thing to
it. I love
have.
it. So I really want to talk finance in this podcast. I really want to lay
Mhm.
out the realities of what it costs to go to certain four-year universities, what that looks like. So I'm asking everyone essentially, now that you're on the other side of undergrad, do you feel like you overspent, underspent, or did you get it just right? And I think you have a unique point of view because you actually finished Cal State Long Beach in 3 years rather than four. So tell me, like, where do you fall?
I think I will say this is the one thing I will always pat myself on the back for. I slayed that. I think that, like, it was not something I planned on at the time. I was like, going to Cal State Long Beach was, like, the most affordable option, but there was, like, a lot of other reasons I went at the end of the day. But I think, like, once I got there was a lot of talk about finances, which I think was amazing. Like, there was a lot of counselors, professors, admin people that were very candid about, like, what it costs to go there, which I think is important, especially at a school like Cal State Long Beach, where it's a lot of non-traditional students, a lot of students from low-income backgrounds. And, like, I knew what it cost to go there every semester, and I knew, I'm not gonna, like, be like, "I did it all on my own." I had parental help, which was, like, I'm very lucky and privileged to have that. And I knew, like, what money I had to spend, and I knew how long it would take me to graduate, and I was like, "I feel like we can get it down." And just there is no, like, there's, like, a recommendation that you do 15 units per semester, and that gets you to graduate in 4 years, but the max you can do per semester is 18, and you can do winter and summer classes, and I was like, "Okay, so I really just have to make up 30 units in,
In any one of those
whatever
semesters.
semesters
Yep.
and, like, little spots." Yeah, so I always did, I did a full unit load every semester, which was 18 units, which honestly, coming from OSHO, it was not bad. I was bored my first semester because I only did 16 units. I was like, "I need something else." Like, I can't only be doing this. And I did winter and summer classes, I think every winter and summer that I had. And I did those at community colleges, which was big because that is, like, a great money saver as well, where it was like, I think if I could do one class winter at Cal State Long Beach, which was like $1,000, which is crazy, for like a 6-week class. But then at Golden West College, where I did most of my classes, it was like $300 for an entire class, which was like amazing. And there were classes where I was like, I don't need to do this at Cal State Long Beach because it's like my math requirement or like my science requirement. Like, this is something that is, I need to graduate, but it's not something that I feel like is make or break where I take it. And there's also great education at these community colleges left too.
Ding,
So
ding. Especially in
yeah.
California, in this region,
Oh
the
yeah.
community college network is outrageous. And even for creative arts, there are
Crazy.
some incredible professors teaching theater at community college. And you have access
Mhm.
to performances that you maybe wouldn't have at other universities. Like there's so much to be said that is
Mhm.
amazing, both from price point and access and opportunity at the community college level. Continue. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like, even at the Cal State level, like, a lot of my professors in journalism were also teaching at USC. So I was like, I am getting my degree for significantly less money, like maybe a tenth of it. And I'm having the same education. And like, I don't think that that can be overstated enough. So, like, I would say, like, my big piece of, wisdom for people looking at colleges, like, look at your professors, look at your classes. Don't look at the school. It does not matter. See what qualifications your professors have and what you're going to get out of it. Don't look at like where you're going to go. I digress. But yeah, I kind of like was able to I talked a lot with my counselors again. I was in there my first semester. I was like, I want to graduate in not 4 years. Like, how can I do that? And they're like, well, you're gonna have to like, load pretty heavy each semester. I was like, girl, I went to OSHA. Don't you worry about me. And I did. And I took like I think I did like 20 units outside of Cal State Long Beach. I also had my AP units, which was
Sure.
very helpful. And I was able to kind of like not cheat the system, but you have your like major requirements and your minor requirements, and you also have your university requirements. And I was able to double count a lot of them. And I really did not have ever come into a point where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I don't know if I'm going to graduate in 3 years because I took control of it from the beginning. I know what I need to do. And if I run into any issues, like I won't because I had a spreadsheet from day one. Like Google Sheets got me my degree, and that's all I can say on the matter. But I also applied for a lot of scholarships, and there's a lot of like affinity groups have scholarships too, which I think is like important for people to look into. I applied to like Latino scholarships. The most scholarship I got was from internally from the school, but it was just like a lot of picking into different pots that I knew had resources because there is so much money available that people just don't go into because they're like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to qualify for that. Like, try it. But like, I think that there's just like so much resource available. And like, it kind of does suck that you do have to really like put in a lot of work to get these things. But I mean, would you rather like put in a lot of time and, not have debt or like not put in the effort and have like
Yeah,
$20,000
that's
you're
what I
paying
always
off?
say. Like, if there's $1,000 scholarship, and that is not to be like, oh, well, that's chump change. Like, no, it's not. It's $1,000.
That a
If
thousand
it took you
dollars,
1 hour, if it took
that's
you
rent.
1 hour to do an application for $1,000 scholarship and you got it, I don't know anyone who's working at Starbucks making $1,000 an hour. To me, again, if you just look at the
Nope.
sheer numbers, you're like, this is a worthwhile use of your time. And it's valuating your time in such a way that really, because I know there's the burnout of applications, there's a burnout, especially in the spring of senior year. People are just like, I already did the application. Don't make me do the scholarship stuff. But
Yeah,
it's just keeping in
you
mind
have to.
that sort of free money, that found money can really make such a difference at the end of your
Mhm.
college time because you you just want to get as much of it paid for as possible. Oh,
Even if it's a month of a loan payment you don't have to pay, take that month. I just cannot, like, overstate the importance of these things because it's like, I don't know, it's awkward to talk about money,
yeah.
especially, like, with your parents, it's awkward sometimes, but, like, you have to do it because it's gonna hurt everybody at the end of the day if you don't take agency over your finances like that. And, like, I worked throughout I always had, like, at least one job throughout college, which, was I think it was good
Yeah.
for me to have that just to, like, learn the value of this is how much I work to get this amount of money. Am I gonna blow that on like one dinner? No. Let me like, cook my own food. And like one of the more important parts of college is like not even the classes that you're taking. It's like the life experience you have to walk away with. So a big reason that I decided to go to grad school was because I didn't have debt. Like I think had I even walked away with like $1,000 of debt, I probably wouldn't have gone to grad school because I'm like, I'm not gonna add on to that. And
I,
like put myself in a worse position than I'm already in.
I
So
love it. And because again, it goes back to like being in the black financially and understanding your finances, you then get to make decisions to benefit you in your life accordingly.
Mhm.
And the fact that 1 year after most of your peers are graduating from undergrad, potentially with thousands, maybe tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of debt, you will walk away
Mhm.
with, I'm presuming, a relatively small amount of debt and your master's.
Yeah, hopefully small, but also, like, for grad school, that was another thing that I was like, "I'm not gonna go if I'm not getting, like, at least half of my tuition covered." To be candid, like, I applied for grad school, I applied to Northwestern and Berkeley, that's it. And I got into both, which was cool 'cause I had never experienced the 100% success rate. It's a college application, and I got the same amount of scholarship from both. I got $40,000 from both, but I'm an in-state resident for Berkeley, and it's just, like, significantly less expensive. It is still
Sure.
very expensive because the UCs are crazy expensive. in comparison to the Cal States, but it's like even 1 year at Northwestern was like $90,000 and like 40,000 was not going to cover it. So I was like, I can't go there. That's fine. I liked the Berkeley program more for me at that point. So I was like, you know what?
It's a
That's
win.
cool.
It's a total win. And
Yeah.
the idea that you can then make, and for me, undergrad really is for exploration, for adulting, for getting
Mhm,
your feet under you, getting your sea legs for what your life as an adult could be. And
mhm,
grad school is a place to really double down on a focus. And I'm not surprised
mhm,
that when in your really broad search from undergrad that there wasn't as much return on investment as a really narrow, sharpshooting kind of approach for grad school. You knew exactly what you
mhm.
were looking for, you knew why you were the candidate for it, and boom, you
Right.
found placement into, really impressive, and I'll put the impressive in quotes, but two really impressive schools, and you knew why you were going there, why you wanted to apply. And you can really start to see where that kind of focus, that mindset makes such a difference.
Night and day. Like, I think when you like were talking about just like this whole thing, I was thinking back on like, it is crazy that I got into both of the schools for grad school, but it really was just that difference of like, I was so focused on journalism in undergrad and I was like, my clips were good. I'd spent a lot of time. I had good editor positions. Like I had the experience and like I wanted to do it. Like in my applications, like I'm sure it came through that like I wanted to go to grad school and I wanted to be a journalist. Where like in musical theater, I know that did not come through because that's not what I wanted. Like I did not want to be a performer, and that's fine. That was like not my path. I think like I am so happy to see people still performing. Alyssa
I
slaying on
mean,
Broadway. And that's so like cool that people were able to take that path. That was not my path. That was not what I should have taken. That was not like in any way what was right for me.
and that's where often those rejections, they're rarely about your talent, they're rarely about your even potential. It often, outside of the numbers, because again, especially in musical theater, those numbers are Harvard level. Like
Oh,
they're crazy.
oh my God. Carnegie's probably harder to get it like because that's like how many spots and like how many people are and how many people are amazing that are
I mean,
applying.
that's sort of what it is in what is arguably, or not arguably, is in fact a subjective art form, right? What is good in musical theater is an
Mm.
entirely subjective. What is a good audition is entirely subjective. I do think what you're saying about your statement of purpose, your personal statements, it really comes through. You can see on the other side of the table
Oh yeah.
if you're like here for it, if you're hungry for it, and if you're not, it's usually an easy way to get a no, and it's not because you're untalented, it's because the drive's not there, or the reason why you should be in that kind of really narrow specified program maybe just isn't a match. And sometimes the world, the admissions, the universe, whatever you want to call it, it really does nudge you in the directions you need to go.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I think like, I don't know, even like as an editor, like I hired people and I always looked for not even the people that had like the best experience. I was like, if you're writing in your cover letter that like this is the type of magazine you want to write for, this is the type of experience you want. I don't really care like what your experience is. I think in 9 times out of 10 in these like creative fields, people are looking for the want to do better more than somebody who's like so affected by, and burnt out, but they're like really good. And I was not horrible. Like I wasn't going in there bombing these
No.
auditions, but like I just did not care. Like I was so not into it and I so didn't want it in the same way that the people who, ultimately got into these programs that I really wanted to get into, I put quotes around, got into. And it was like, they were willing to kill in a way that I just was not. And that's fine. But that was just like, I think hard for me to like wrap my
Yeah.
head around at the time, which is why I was very nightmarish in those few months.
You found your way. You found your way, Bella Arnold. You found your way.
Yeah. Eventually. Yeah.
I'm sort of curious. Now, you come from such unique experiences. You're the daughter of an immigrant. You have experience in musical theater, your time at Cal State Long Beach, your time in journalism, being an editor, being a researcher. What do you sort of imagine your unique industry pathways are in front of you? What do you think's going to come down the pike?
I think that there is another thing I really like about journalism is it is
Yeah.
so broad. And like at Berkeley, we have different tracks that we take, and it's not like a hard and fast thing. People dip into other things, but like for our thesis projects, we have to pick a track. And I'm narrative writing, but like within that, there's
Yeah.
so much. Like even though I'm like, I know I want to be a writer, it's crazy how many different paths you could take. I think for me, like, I really am enjoying doing this investigative work, but I don't know that that's necessarily like where I want to live because it's a lot emotionally, mentally. There's a lot of, you're seeing people on their worst days, you're
Yeah.
seeing people die. And I think it's important to do the work so that going forward, there's less of that happening. But like I said, I really just enjoy writing stories about marginalized people having joy, which I think like seems so simple and like people write it off as silly. People are like, oh, magazine stuff is like not as serious. It's like the fluff work, which like, a lot of times it is fluff. Like a service story about like where to get your nails done in New York, that's fluff and that's fine, but it
Yeah.
helps people. Journalism is all about disseminating information for the people who do not have that information. So if like me disseminating where the best nail salon is going to help somebody who does not know where the best nail salon is, that's journalism, baby. Sorry. Is a Pulitzer winning? Maybe. Like it just
Why
depends on the
not?
way you write it.
Exactly. Why
Who
not?
knows?
Oh my God,
Yeah.
choose joy.
I don't know, and I think that that's so, like, there's such a, there's, like, a lot of old school journalism. I consider myself part of new school journalism, which is, a heavily controversial thing. But there is so much, like, emphasis on, like, if it bleeds, it leads. Like, we're telling stories about, like, things happening, and I just think that that is so upsetting to hear, and it's like, I still hear people who are, like, my age who are saying that, and I think that that's such, like, a dated approach, and that is the reason people don't trust us, amongst other things, is because like the people who we're ousting people who are like only reading stories about people who look like them dying and people who look like them killing, which is not, even a shred of what these communities have. And I don't know. I think that like I'm in a race and journalism class right now, and we like read this thing that was somebody was saying if you're a Latino and you're covered by a journalist, you're an immigrant. And I think that that's just like a perfect way to encapsulate the way that marginalized people are covered in journalism. I just want to be able to write things about people who are, you know, doing great things. Like there's a lot of great small businesses, even that you could do a profile on. Like it's these small things that like just make a world of difference. And yeah, I also like covering books because like obviously I'm like really into reading. I think the literary industry is fascinating, but I think that even kind of goes hand in hand. There's not a lot of representation in the publishing space, and to like see that that's like starting to change a little bit is like very affirming. So yeah, I see myself in like a staff writer position at a magazine in the feature section, but I also really like editing. I really enjoyed being an editor, and like hopefully in the future I'll get back to that. But you know, I will take whatever job I am handed. I also need a salary.
I hear that and I understand that, but Bella, that was like the most beautiful mission statement I've heard in a minute. The idea
Stuff.
that you're so clear about how you want to use your voice, your power, your privilege in with such clarity and such a sense of why it's going to affect people, how it's going to benefit marginalized communities and the communities at large, right? Like that trickles down to everyone. I don't know many
Mhm.
people your age who have that clarity. Truly, truly, it's exciting. Okay, so I really think it's important to like go back and sort of imagine that 17-year-old Bella, knowing where you are now. Like, what's that one thing you wish you had understood about the college application process before you started? And what advice would you give to that 16, 17, 18-year-old Bella now? Like, what would current Bella give that younger Bella in terms of advice?
I feel like, I think that so much of my story was dependent on the bad thing that happened. But I also think that like there was so much strife that I went through that was like so unnecessary. And I think that just like, it's it's never that serious. I think is like the moral of the story that like at the end of the day, it's gonna be okay. Like, take a deep breath. And I don't know, I think just to, like, understand that there's, like, value in the schools that are not, like, as celebrated, specifically in Ocean. There was so much emphasis, and every year we had to do these, like, workshops about, like, here's what classes you need to take to get into, like, UCLA and, like, the UCs, and, like, I ended up at a UC, which was, like, cool. But I think that there was, like, so much emphasis on these, like, you know, prestigious programs like the Ivy Leagues, the Ivy adjacent, and like literally that doesn't matter. I graduated with a bachelor's degree. It does not matter from where. I'm good at my job. That's cool. Employers seem to like that. And also just like I think looking at like what your life experience is going to be and not just like what the programs are. Because like I said, like I think I'm infinitely happier at a place like Cal State Long Beach being around people who have similar backgrounds than I do, or who don't have similar backgrounds than me that are gonna like, but I think like my life experience was like so much better having gone to Cal State Long Beach or somewhere like Cal State Long Beach. And I think that that's really important. Also, be empowered to like ask questions in these interviews, to like ask like, what is a college experience going to be like for somebody like me who comes from this background, who looks like this, who da 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 da. Like, you're auditioning the schools as much as they're auditioning you. At the end of the day, they want your money when you get into these schools. So make sure it's going somewhere and make sure you're opening your purse for the right people. Like, do not feel bullied into like being like, oh, please let me in. Like, I love this school. Everything about it is great. Because you know what? It probably isn't. Every institution has issues, but you need to like figure out which issues are going to be the ones that are the most detriment to your quality of life.
Everyone's got baggage. Every institution's got baggage. You got to find the ones that match.
Much.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally what I'm trying to preach is this idea of like, it's actually not that deep. Even if your worst case scenario happens, you have so many options. There are so many options. And when you have that
Mhm.
abundant mindset and you can see multiple paths in front of you, if you can just calm and actually look what's in front of you, you'll make such wiser decisions.
Beyond that, beyond those 4 years you're gonna spend, maybe more, maybe less, it's not gonna matter. Because at the end of the day, like and like, even you don't need a degree, but if you are gonna get a degree, you're getting a degree regardless. It doesn't matter if it's like an 88% acceptance rate or an 8% acceptance rate. Like, you are getting a degree in something and that has value. And even if you're not, you're working somewhere and that has value. Like, there is value in quite literally everything because everything is an ecosystem and everything needs to exist for the other thing to exist. So,
And it's your job as that young creative, as that young academic, as that, young writer to take on whatever's in front of you and
Mhm.
get the most out of it. And so you're not sitting in a community college classroom, arms folded, going like, well, this isn't blank
Mhm.
institution. Because at the end of the day, seizing the opportunities that you do have in front of you and
Mhm.
just milking them for all they're worth. And I see so many students who are really passive in that um part of the process. Unlike, I mean, that's Bella Arnold's superpower. Like, you were not passive in your education. You're really passionate about your education, and it shows. I really do think it shows.
Mhm. Thank you.
Bella Arnold, I am so grateful to know you. Truly, I'm so proud of you. I'm so excited for this new path for you. I can't wait to see what you do and what you write. If people want to get a hold of you or read your writing and see what you're up to, how might they reach you?
I have a website that I do not update as much as I should, but that's where I post all my work. Like, once it's gone out, it's bellaarnold.com. I'm also trying to use Twitter more because that's like journalist, like Super Bowl is posting on Twitter. And it's Bella A Writes is my Twitter.
Awesome. I'll make sure those links are in the podcast episode. Bella, thank you for coming and spending this time with me today. This was a delight. And that was the end of our first interview episode of the Creative College Journey podcast. We hope this episode with Bella Arnold was beneficial to you. And thank you, the listener, for taking time out of your busy day to listen. If you are in need of some encouragement, guidance, and inspiration for your college journey and would like to work with me, Scott, don't hesitate to reach out to our website, www.creativecollegejourney.com, to schedule a free, no obligation, legitimately no obligation, 1-hour consultation to find out the many ways that my company can help you on your path. And you can also find me, Scott Barnhart, at Instagram at Scott Barnhart, making really silly reels every now and then. If you enjoyed our show, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It helps others find us. And be sure to come back in the coming weeks for more discussions about creative college admissions, lowering the temperature on the process, and the many industry pathways and transferable skills that a creative education in life can offer. Don't forget, it's not where you go to school, but how you go to school that counts. Thank you.
Say it again.
Thank you, Bella.